Have you ever heard of the Mad Caliph of Egypt, who is known for being cruel and eccentric? Al-Hakim's disappearance may actually mark the first bad fortune of Friday the 13th.
Then there's Joan Risch, who vanished in 1961, leaving behind a trail of blood, a crying baby, and a big mystery. Did she fake her own death, start a new life, or was she abducted? Something else happened?
From famous disappearances to the weirdest ones you've never heard before, this Edge of Wonder episode with Ben and Rob collected the surprising stories of strange disappearances in history.
Want to hear them all? We'll have them on the show. So we'll see you guys out
on the edge.
And if you're listening to our Edge of Wonder podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or elsewhere, please leave us a 5-star rating and reviews to help us reach even more people. And also remember to like, follow, subscribe, share.
I feel like that was the longest that's ever taken you to get through.
Maybe.
How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good. This is going to be a weird one.
Yeah, it is for sure.
There's a lot I don't know about Egyptian history to begin with, but and you know, Friday the 13th is a pretty big rabbit hole. I mean, I don't think a lot of people know about some of these disappearances that we found.
Oh, I agree. I definitely agree. Yeah. Including, and I was even working on a lot of disappearances episodes recently, and even this one with Risch. I didn't actually come across like this Joan Risch. This was actually a new one for me. So a lot of information we have on this one. So, well, do you want to get into the first one, Rob?
Yeah, the Mad Caliph, or Nero of Egypt, Al-Hakim. So this guy Al-Hakim was a 10th to 11th century ruler of the Fatimid dynasty. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And he was known for his erratic and contradictory leadership. So basically, telltale signs of a narcissist or a psycho right there. He led for 25 years, from 996 to 1021 AD, of his known 36 years of life, during which time he, for instance, established a generous policy to support the poor, only to follow it with some astonishingly harsh or strange edict, such as forbidding women to leave their homes, and then forbidding cobblers to make or sell women's footwear. Like, that's so random and bizarre. He's like, okay, you women keep wanting to leave your home, or what if I take away your shoes? Take that, pesky women.
It's so weird.
It's like, those are definitely like, it was old times when someone's forbidding cobblers to make or sell women's footwear. So one night in February of 1021, Al-Hakim wrote out of Cairo. He was never heard from again, nor was his body ever found. Like, this dude is out of his bloody mind. Okay, so he had ordered the killing of all dogs because their barking annoyed him. He banned various veggies and shellfish just because.
Just because you can.
Yeah, he didn't like certain vegetables, I guess. Okay, so some think that actually he ended up turning to an ascetic life, which that's spelled Ascetic, which means,
like become a monk or something like that.
Beggar kind of thing, and he withdrew to the society to journey the countryside alone at age 35, but no one knows for sure.
Yeah.
He had an obsession with suppressing all signs of corruption and immorality in public life, and yet still decided to persecute the Christians, Jews, and Sunni Muslims and he was soon deified by extremists. This
Yeah.
guy's on a just wow.
So
Hitting
what?
home runs here.
Well, it makes you wonder, like, what he actually believed in. That's what's kind of strange.
Yeah, what's weird, with these kinds of people too, like you often get people kind of thinking these accusations were some type of like propaganda. Like this guy wasn't that bad, but it was some type of propaganda against him, which,
Mhm.
it's sort of like if you think of the Romanovs, like there's so much anti-Romanov propaganda that he and his family were doing a bad job of ruling, none of it based in reality, but like because it was the communists that overthrew him, you just get like a lot of wacky history woven in to that entire thing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it is possible. Um, he distributed food and tried to stabilize prices. He founded mosques and patronized scholars and poets. Some accounts say a search for him found only his horse and bloodstained garments. So his disappearance remains a mystery. Probably someone murdered him.
I mean, especially if he was persecuting all those different groups, it could be even people within his own
Right.
company could have, took
Yeah,
part
it's
in
like
something.
finally he left the king, like the palace, and somebody
Yeah.
finds him in the open and just decides to take him out. But what's weird is he did vanish on Friday the 13th, 1021. That's 286 years before the Templars, as you know, were arrested on that
Mhm.
fateful day of Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it
Um,
was February of
Sweet.
1021. February, Friday the 13th. So
Wait, yeah, when were the Templars?
it was in October.
October the
October
13th.
13.
But when was it? It was like 10, sorry,
No,
12 or
I think it was 13.
1310 or something.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
What's your
like
question?
When the Templars were the date that the Templars were persecuted. I can't remember the actual day.
yeah, I can't. I'm trying to remember I mean, well, you add 286 years to 1021.
1307.
1307. Yeah.
October 13th, 1307.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought it was 1310 for some
Yeah,
reason.
our last Friday show was the exact anniversary on the dot of
Wow, we should have dressed up in Templar armor.
Dude, I just found the knight's costume, man. We could have done that actually.
You got to get that and just have that,
Yeah,
take it out of your back pocket when we need it.
I know. Well, we are from Halloween is next Tuesday, so we'll do something for Halloween.
Okay, well, these disappearances are going to get weirder here, you guys.
I think the Templars were arrested a different year from when Jacques du Molay was burned at the stake. That might be what you're thinking of, Rob.
Well, that all happened at the same time, though.
I don't think it was the same year.
I was literally just watching the History Channel about this. It all happened.
No, he was burned in 1314.
Yeah, but it was okay. But on that day, the king basically decided to turn on them because he needed money. And this is, what they tell us. And then he just started going after the Templars right after that. I mean, Jacques du Molay was like a part of that whole process.
Right. Yes. And I mean, and depending on who you talk to and what source you use, and there's different interpretations of
is true.
What happened around that time. But we went into it last Friday, last Friday, so we don't have to go too much into it. But if you want to know more of our thoughts about it, you can watch our last Friday show. So, all right. Well, we're going to be moving on because we actually have a lot to talk about here. And the next one is the disappearance of Brian Schaffer, which we actually featured this in our last so we have a Halloween series that Rob and I did for Edge of Wonder on Rise TV, and this was one of the ones that we
featured.
Yes. I was having some issues bringing this up, but I finally got it. So hold on.
You're pulling something up, right?
I'm pulling something up. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So this was our episode here. Scary hauntings, vanishings, and a message in a tombstone. So this one like actually hit a little bit more home for me because so Brian Schaffer, if you don't know, if you haven't seen our episode yet, this happened in Columbus, Ohio in 2006. He was at a bar called the Ugly Tuna Saloon, and crazy name, but he just simply vanished. And there is video footage of him walking. So what's weird about this bar, it's on the second story. And so you have to take an escalator up to get there. And there's only one entrance though. And it shows him outside around like a little before 2 a.m. And then he walks in the direction where the doors are. And then he goes underneath the camera's view. And then he's never seen ever again. Not on any other cameras. No one ever found a body. There was a massive search for him. The entire police force of Columbus, Ohio, pretty much end up looking for this guy. Everyone thought he was going to turn up eventually, and never did.
I feel like did John comment on this? I feel like we got some data from John on this, like what actually happened to him.
I don't think we did.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know. If you did, you didn't talk about it yet.
He told me then on the telephone. He was like, oh, yeah, that guy, blah, blah, blah. But I can't remember what it was.
Interesting. Yeah, and it was weird for me because I was living downtown Columbus, Ohio, right when this happened, actually. So for me, but everyone, at the time, because this happened like a mile away from where I was living. And at the time, everyone was just like, everybody was just like, yeah, he has to show up eventually. Either you're going to find a body or, he'll just turn up, and then never did. So, the police even thought it was like an April Fool's joke or something because this happened at the very end of March.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah. Even like the smiley face killer was brought into it because they thought maybe he was a victim of that, but then there was no evidence to show. His friends all took lie detector tests except for one of them, and that became kind of like everyone was kind of looking at this guy, one of his friends. And then his father died in a freak accident 2 years later after his disappearance. So there's a lot of weird stuff with this one. But we go into really in great detail about it on this episode that we have. And then, of course, we have a scary Elsa Disney doll that we start out with, and including a real life, almost like an SOS that was found in a toy tombstone.
Oh yeah.
So
it's one of the craziest Halloween stories of all time, easily.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It really is. So
that documentary that was featured in, letters from Masinja.
Yeah, letter from Masinja.
Letter from Masinja.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh. If y'all at home haven't seen that, it's probably one of the best documentaries of all time.
I agree. Yeah. And it happens. I think what makes it so unique, it actually takes place in real time. So it's like it's towards the middle of the documentary. It's like all of a sudden it's in real time. And so you're just like on the edge of your seat because you don't know what's going to happen. And it's really intense, actually. It's something I've never really quite seen before done in this way. And the guy who wrote the letter, he was a Falun Gong practitioner, and he was in China, and he was in a prison camp in Masinja prison camp, which was at the time rated as one of the worst prison labor camps to be in. And he sent a letter out, and it was found. And he was still in China when they were making this documentary. So it's all about him now trying to leave China and trying not to get caught. And that's where it gets really intense, actually.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, how did this all, how did this happen this way? This is crazy. So yeah, it was really, it's a really good documentary. If you haven't seen it, please check it out.
For sure. So yeah, moving on here a little bit to the mysterious disappearance of Joan Risch.
Joan
I believe
Risch.
you pronounce that.
Yep, it
So
is.
actually, before we get into this, Lindsay, did you want to show a trailer here and then get into it?
Let's do that.
Yeah, why don't you pull one of those up and we'll go ahead and check that out. And then when we get back, we're going to discuss the mysterious disappearance of Joan Risch. So hold on to your hats and we'll be right back.
Yeah, it's intense.
From a haunted doll that won't go away
to the mysterious disappearance of a college student,
from the infamous Stanley Hotel
to a message in a tombstone.
There's plenty to keep you up at night, so sit back, grab a friend, and huddle up by the campfire, because these stories will chill you to the bone.
In this episode of Edge of Wonder, join us as we get spookier and peer into the paranormal world.
Our world is full of mysteries, unexplained phenomena, metaphysical encounters, and of course, divine miracles that can't be explained.
And they might just leave you frozen in fear, like our first mystery on the list, the haunted Elsa doll.
All right, welcome back. So that series, our whole Halloween, all of our Halloween episodes are on rise.tv. And if you guys like what you're seeing here, what we do, we would really appreciate the support. And we've got tons of Halloween content from everything from vampires, the Salem witch trials, if you're interested in that. No one's tracked down all of the information on that. Werewolves, Vlad the Impaler, some of the stuff we've got on that is incredible. We've exposed Halloween a bunch of times. I mean, we've got all kinds of things. And then just recently we've got those Cleveland torso murders, which were crazy. A couple of metaphysical episodes, the Ohio Melonheads and the Dudleytown Dark Entry Forest, which is totally mysterious and crazy. Great campfire stuff. Come on over to rise.tv and support our work. It's only $9.99 a month. We can use the help and it'll provide you with endless hours of entertainment. I promise. But yeah, well, why don't we get over here to this mysterious disappearance of Joan Risch?
Yeah.
Okay, so this happened exactly 62 years ago today.
Yes.
October 24th.
This is what's so weird about it. Sorry, what'd you say, Rob?
I said this happened exactly 62 years ago today, on October 24th, 1961. That's crazy.
It is. Yeah.
So, I mean, anytime you get New England to be the place of a creepy story, it gets that much creepier because New England is the oldest part of the country. Joan Risch, she lived in a quiet Cape Cod house on a picturesque suburban street in the wealthy area of Lincoln, Massachusetts. If you live up in Mass or that area, that's a pretty nice area. And it was, of course, it was a quiet afternoon. And Joan's daughter and her son were playing with a neighbor's child right across the street. In the hour and a half or so, when only Joan and her sleeping 2-year-old were present in the house, something terrible happened. Exactly what? Nobody knows. But the kitchen was discovered, covered in blood, and the young mother was gone without a trace. Now, this is crazy. Like, blood was found in other rooms as well. The strange thing is nobody heard any screams and nobody saw anything that solved the crime at all. A neighbor saw blood leading from the house to the driveway after Joan's child went home and couldn't find her mother. There were several unconfirmed sightings of a bloody woman walking on roads later in the day, but these may have not been real at all. And there are claims Joan borrowed library books about murder and disappearances, including one with similarities to her case. The phone was allegedly ripped off the wall. So these are all details of the case here. So there's a few theories here. Yeah, Ben, did you want to kind of go through a few of these?
Well, okay, so one is like Joan staged a fake crime scene or was abducted and started a new life somewhere else. Her husband actually believes this. He also thinks that she could have had experienced like amnesia and gotten lost. There are rumors or stories that in the days after her disappearance, a woman made phone calls to the Risch home and neighbor homes, which could have been Joan, and like, you know, in a state of delusion and not knowing what she's doing. However, none of these have been like confirmed 100% or anything else. And in fact, like Rob mentioned earlier, that there were reports about seeing a bloody woman, or just reports seeing a woman walking that looked like Joan. And according to the police that looked into it, they didn't find those credible, and it didn't, according to the police, it didn't match up to Joan. So the other thing was there could have been a terrible accident at the home and she got confused and, you know, just wandered off or something like that. Like she could have been mowing the lawn and then somehow injured herself. But then again, it doesn't explain why the phone was off the wall. So there was a book that came out by Stephen Hearn, I think his last name is Ahern, called A Kitchen Painted in Blood. And it's really fascinating what he wrote in here, because he wrote a lot of details that the police seem to overlook. How, like, to perfect example, a neighbor spotted an unfamiliar car in their driveway around 3:25. So this would have been around the time when she disappeared.
Right.
Another neighbor saw a car backing out of the driveway around 3:40, and it was reported around the same car. So initially, according to this guy who did the research, the police originally thought that maybe it was an unmarked police car that arrived at the scene. But when this guy wrote this book, he was like, no, it didn't make sense, because the police car didn't show up until after they were called, which wasn't until after 4 or so. So this was before the police showed up. He also made an interesting point in the book that there was a report from the milkman claimed that he saw the same car in their driveway 5 days before the disappearance.
So this is where that theory comes in, that it could have been, you know, a jealous lover or something.
That's what some people are suggesting. You know, the other aspect was, but the other thing that he noticed, that the other 2 cars weren't there. So she has a car and her husband has a car. So he said there was a car there. Their car wasn't there. I don't know if they have a garage or not, you know. The couple witnesses called in about the license plates, and then believing what was the car in question. According to the police, they looked into it, and this is where things get weird. The police decided that there was no evidence to link the car in question to the crime. They found out it was a stolen car, so there was no connection between the owner and the crime.
Wow.
So it's like, that's a very important detail that it's like, okay, if the car was stolen, that clearly indicates something. Now, this is all according to Hearn, who wrote this book. Yeah. Now, here's some points that the book really actually makes. You know, so as shocking as the blood scene is, I guess experts looked at it and realized that there was only about a half a pint that was spilled. So to put this in perspective, sometimes
that's not that much, but it can spread a lot.
It can spread a lot. So let's just say someone has a nosebleed. If your nose is, I mean, I've had nosebleeds where I've lost a lot of blood, you know? So they're saying that could be. Now, what the author, without going all the details, what the author really kind of like his summary of the events is basically, it looks like somebody that they weren't having an affair, but it was somebody that could have been like, there was, especially the 60s, there's a lot of traveling salesmen. It's normal for people to come to the home to try to sell you something or whatever. And he thinks that maybe like somebody made a stop or saw her at a park and talked to her and kind of like figured out where she lived, went to the home to kind of check things out, found out like, that her husband wasn't going to be home, and came back 5 days later. But here's another really,
but this is like, it's a little bit of a stretch, because how often do these like multi-level marketing people get accused of murdering other people? Like, they're just there to make a buck. You know what I mean?
That's true. The other aspect is, it looks like he was driving a stolen car. But I mean, he could have been posing as some marketing person. But this is the really weird thing. When the police were looking on the scene, they found that the phone book was already open to emergency numbers, and this is prior to 911. And they recently moved to Massachusetts, as you were saying. So it's possible that something happened and there was some kind of altercation. She had time to actually open up the phone book. So it wasn't like it didn't seem to happen right away. Her son was upstairs. He might have like tried to stop her from calling the police and like rip the phone off the wall and maybe like hit her in the process or something like that. And checked on the son, realized the son is like a toddler. That could be why there's blood upstairs. Comes back down and doesn't want to kill her there, and maybe just like takes her in the car, which is why they found blood outside. They found blood. So I mean, I think
that what you just said is the closest thing to like a linear story of what could have happened that we've come across yet. Like,
yes,
because those details of the book being open, the emergency book being open, and then the phone being ripped from the wall, like those you can progress in a story almost perfectly, right?
I agree. And the other aspect was they found the telephone cord wrapped very neatly in the trash can.
What does that mean?
I don't. So, and the trash can was moved from the corner of the kitchen to the center of the kitchen. And as you like, Lindsay pulled up that photo, and it kind of shows the trash can. So it kind of looks like that he might have been trying to clean up the scene, but she might have been with him in the car, or because
like let's say she's got the emergency book open, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I'm gonna call the whatever. Says that, and the guy's like, oh, you think you're gonna call them? And he rips the phone off of the wall, and then slowly, while he's talking to her, neatly kind of packages it up and then places it in the trash and be like, what are you gonna do now? Right? Like,
yeah,
that could happen.
This sounds more logical than anything else. And like Lindsay is showing that photo, and so they're saying it looks like someone tried to clean up the scene, because there's a roll of paper towels on the floor, and there's some that were like next to the blood, but then that's it. They
can you show that picture again, Lindsay?
See the paper towels on the floor, right? And then there's one right next to it. It's either a piece of paper, but it looks like it's like.
Can you zoom into that trash can?
Yeah, the trash can.
Keep going.
That looks like a bucket. I don't think this
a bucket.
Is a trash can.
Yeah. Okay, they're not.
It might be being used as a trash can.
Yeah, the trash can is not in this photo.
But it looks like it's being used as a trash can.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's an old coffee cup in there.
There's a phone here. This is the cord behind the arrow.
Oh, that is the cord.
That is the cord.
Let me see if I can open this in another window.
Maybe that is the trash can.
View in browser. Good option.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, this is the phone cord. That's the receiver.
What's that metal thing in front of it? Is that like a
It looks
It's like
can
a
of
can.
green
Can.
beans or something?
Yeah, it probably is. But yeah, you're right. That does look like a phone cord in the trash. So
Okay, zoom out again.
it looks like it's somebody who wasn't really intentionally trying to hurt. Like they could have he could have tried to stop her, accidentally ripped it off the wall and like smashed her face with it or something, an accident or on purpose. But yeah, it does look like there's a lot of blood there, but it's like, if you hit someone's nose, I mean, that would easily cause that much blood. And my friend actually, long time ago, she was freaking out one day. She came home and she saw all these splatters of blood all over her apartment. And she called me freaking out. And I'm like, dude, I have no idea. And I go over there and we're trying to like figure out what's going on. And then 2 weeks later, well, I'm looking at her cat and I noticed her cat had like dried blood on its face. And then what happened was she has 2 cats and they got into a fight and the other cat like scratched her. And then every time she was sneezing and it was like sneezing blood, just like kind of on the wall. And it really wasn't that much, but because it was like the nose, it looked like there was a lot of blood. So it's like, when you see blood on a scene, it's hard to tell really how much blood it actually is. So
Darn cats.
yeah. Here's another here's another really strange fact though. The house, the land the house is on was purchased by the government and they moved the house.
What?
Yeah. I heard he brings it up. He brings it up on the in the book.
He had a husband, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So was he?
He died later. I think that was.
But
He was on a business trip when this all happened.
Yeah.
He had just left.
Yeah.
Oh,
Which why people were saying that either she was having an affair, or 2, the person knew that her husband wasn't there.
There are photos of these people.
Well, it happened in the 60s, so that's why it's kind of.
I mean,
there's photos of her. I don't know about her husband.
Yeah, we haven't seen any photos of them. We've just seen photos of the destroyed.
We saw photos of her. Lindsay was showing him at the beginning.
Oh, I had the doc pulled up, so I didn't
Yeah.
see it. Maybe Lindsay, could you pull that up real quick?
But
Yeah,
I think like
weird case.
I think the really weird thing is how the police responded to this, especially about the car. They even had the license plate and they like didn't look into it any further. So it makes me wonder if
Something happened. Like,
Yeah,
why would the government buy that property?
Yeah, that's the really, really weird thing.
This just keeps getting weirder.
That was the last piece of information when I was looking into it. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. What? The government bought this?
And the kids survived, I assume.
Yeah, no, I mean, they weren't killed or anything. I don't know what happened to them.
The kids were across the street, the older ones. They came
Right.
home. Mom's not there, but the walls are red and stuff. They go back and tell the neighbor mom, who comes over, finds the baby crying in the crib upstairs, and there's blood in the house.
Jeez.
Yeah, and then there was also rumors that the neighbor across the street had something to do with it, because from like the book mentions that from the view from their house, from their window, they can see a pretty good view of the home, but it's like I kind of doubt it in that case. I think that this car, whatever it is, definitely has something to do with it, and for whatever reason, the police. I don't know. It's weird. I've been looking at a lot of these weird, either strange disappearances or murders that happen, and a lot of the police don't follow the leads that seem to be the most obvious and the ones that really show something that's going on. And I don't know why. I don't know if there's like,
well, I think bureaucracy and like, think about it. If somebody at the top is in the know and there's a really capable detective that starts sniffing stuff out, the guy at the top who's trying to protect information from leaking may be like, stop looking into this and look into that.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
he's like, I don't care. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you think. I'm
Yes.
paying you to answer me. And then he gets him to look into something else and no one finds anything.
That is a really good point. I mean, because it may not be the police that's incompetent. You're right. You know, if they're being told at the very top, like, hey, I don't want you to look into this anymore, you're going to be on this case. Like, there's nothing you can do about it.
Exactly. And then just like that, so many times detectives who are hot on the trail of something get taken off. They get moved to another case. So many things happen. It's crazy. And then eventually these detectives start to see how stuff is organized, and they eventually like just get their pension and get out or whatever. I mean, I have friends who were detectives in the DIA. They were detectives in the FBI, and they saw so much funny stuff going on that they were like, I can't do this anymore. And they themselves just kind of like got themselves out. They were doing crazy stuff too. Like we're talking about like big bus stuff, you know?
Well, especially if somebody is like our Cleveland torso murders, you know, this is another episode that we just did for the Halloween series. And, like the main head person who was the chief suspect in the case, you know, was tied to a congressman. It was like his relative was a congressman that was running locally, so it was like it made it hard to do anything. So, you know, this could be another situation where it's like, oh my gosh, this person is actually connected to so and so, and there's not much we can do about this because we don't want this person to look bad or whatever, you know. So I think that's it's weird. It really is.
Well, if those of you at home thought we were finished, this episode wouldn't be complete, of course, without talking about Hitler. So we're going to go ahead and watch a trailer for the torso murders and get back and talk about the strange disappearance of one Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
Who was the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run? The Cleveland Torso murders are some of the most gruesome killings that have ever taken place in America. Some believe it was worse than Jack the Ripper's crimes.
On September 5th, 1934, this small, forsaken neighborhood that probably would have faded away into oblivion etched its name in history.
And the weird part is that there were very suspicious circumstances revolving around the suspects, which adds even more mystery to these horrible crimes.
Little did they know at the time that this would end up becoming the biggest investigation in the Cleveland Police Department's history.
Because this is an Edge of Wonder Halloween special, and I promise we'll try to make you laugh through this dark topic.
All right, welcome back. So that was the Cleveland torso murder.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty crazy.
It definitely is.
Yeah,
Something I never heard about until started looking into it. I can't believe it. Out of all the times, I mean, I have family in Cleveland and never knew about it.
Well, I think things really got real for me in that episode when Elliot Ness showed up. I was like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that whole thing. Like, what a weird guy. Anyway.
Yeah, seriously. But I think a lot of people haven't heard about it because there was, at the end of the day, they messed up so much in that investigation that I think that they were trying to wipe it away from history, like hoping that people just forgot about this. But anyway, all right, Rob, why don't you can lead us off with Hitler?
Well, Well, that's so nice of you to let me lead this discussion, Ben. Okay, well, you all know this, right? The official story is that Hitler committed suicide in a bunker in 1945 because he knew he had lost the war and he knew what was coming. Military historians have an idea. Conspiracy theorists have a totally different idea. Pretty much everyone has questions because there are a lot of contradictory things flying around. Okay, so here's a few interesting things here, right? British historian Hugh Trevor Roper documented the official account of Hitler's death in his book. He was tasked in June of 1945 to document Hitler's last days to prove he'd in fact died in the bunker. I bet you all didn't know that. Okay, well, Trevor Roper was a distinguished military historian, but at the time of the assignment, he was only a specialist in British history and didn't speak or read German. He completed his research over just 10 days. He relied on summaries of interrogations of people thought to have been in the bunker with Hitler in his last
probably
week.
spoke German. It's like I'm the investigator. I need a translator in here.
The Führer is definitely dead. So the summaries were provided by American intelligence. So just filling you in a little bit more here. So he didn't have access to, excuse me, he did not have access to Nazi prisoners being held by the Soviets, and it's unclear if he spoke to any alleged witness or witnesses even. So eyewitness testimony was contradictory, claiming the death occurred on any of the 5 days between April 27th and May 1st. Okay, so no one really knows if any of that happened. The causes of death ranged from natural causes, like a heart attack or something, or hunger or whatever, to poisoning, to suicide. There was a consensus the body was burned, but descriptions of the body and how it was dressed varied. Okay, so even the descriptions of the body and all of that were all different among all of these people. This is getting weirder and weirder.
It is.
Trevor Roper constructed the narrative of Hitler's death by combining the various eyewitness accounts and just putting them all into one. The Allies were interested in promoting Hitler had died, of course, not escaped from Berlin. Right. Allies thought Germany would accept the occupation more readily if they thought he was dead and couldn't lead a Nazi resurgence. Okay, the Allies wanted to show Hitler died a coward's death. They wanted to erase any chance that the Nazis could advance a repeat of the stabbed in the back explanation that followed Germany's defeat in World War I. Trevor Roper's task wasn't to determine what happened in Hitler's final days, but to put together an argument that he died in the bunker. This he did, creating a bestseller in the process.
Of course.
Okay, so it really comes down to this. Did he or did he not escape to Argentina? Okay, so now many claims say that Hitler escaped to South America, possibly Argentina, with other Nazi leaders, where they created all kinds of weird experiments and created twins in this one town that we just won't get into right now. Actually, we are going to get into that because the Nazi doctor, I think his name was Josef Mengele, right?
Yes.
Notorious for his experiments on twins in the Auschwitz concentration camp. He escaped to Argentina, where there are these twins that I just described. Mengele allegedly made many trips to a small and predominantly German settlement in Brazil on Argentina's border in the 60s, shortly after the birth rate of twins began to skyrocket. What do you know? Today claims that the twin town just has high levels of inbreeding that caused twinning factors.
But that's not what
you German inbreeders.
So weird.
Okay, so however, the high prevalence of blonde hair and blue eyes among the twins could be evidence
Mm,
of Mengele's Aryanizing influence. It was a German village where such features could have been more common, but come on.
but yeah, really, it's like I'm going to a Spanish community where everyone's going to be blonde and blue eyes. It's like, I wonder.
Yeah, people try to debunk that Nazis escaped to South America today, and that Mengele continued his research there. They like constantly trying to debunk this. They say
Mhm.
Mengele didn't have the knowledge of genes, twin births, etc., to manipulate the South American population, but he had
Right.
unlimited money
Yeah.
and prisoners in Auschwitz, and was a doctor experimenting on twins. So it's likely he did have this knowledge. In fact, right?
Mhm.
These Nazis were also highly interested in the occult, of course. And
Yeah.
if you don't believe that, you should check out our Relics of Power series, which has all kinds of crazy info about the real life, as far as we can tell, rituals that Hitler himself did to bring this power into himself, and all the relics he was after to get that power. But I kind of want to ask, well, we've got a little more to get through, so I do want to hear what you think about this, Ben. But
Well, yeah. Well, the other aspect is a few years ago there was some FBI documents that came out, and this is why people were suggesting that he went to Argentina, supposedly. So Snopes is coming against this, like, oh well, that's because we can't find any evidence because their names are redacted, and it's like, well, of course, like, and so they're like false, and it's like, well, they're it's like, of course the names are redacted. That doesn't mean it's false, right? I mean, that's what's crazy about it. So there was 2 German submarines that were recorded to have docked to the shore of Argentina one night in 1945. At around 50 people secretly made their way to the land in Argentina, and then buses drove them. So that's what this document actually says. It goes into detail that the FBI had made a deal with this unidentified person who's listed in the doc, but his name is redacted. And so even the CIA looked into this. And so there's a document on the CIA website. It highlights a former SS soldier who told spies he regularly met with Hitler in Colombia. Now, this is after supposedly he's dead now. And so this is the document that was released, and it basically shows timestamps of when he was coming to Colombia. And specifically, I mean, according to him, you see Hitler Adolf is there. His name is there on the right.
oh yeah, on the right up there.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So this is from 1963. So now he also claimed he took a photo. Now this is from the source, and again, his name is redacted, and they just call him a CIA informant. He said he'd taken a photo with Hitler, but they didn't show the photograph. Now, here's what's super fascinating. There are reported photographs of Hitler in Argentina. What's really super fascinating is not whether the photos are real or not, but who's in the photo is a guy named Walter and his wife, Ida, and they own the hotel, which this is reportedly the hotel, the Eden Hotel in Argentina, and who's circled right here is supposed to be Hitler. So there's no doubt.
In what year?
This is in, I want to say it was in the early 60s, possible late 50s.
He looks too much like the Fuhrer from the 40s, though.
It could be. I think they said the date on here, or it could be they may not actually have the dates. Let me see if they mention it. I don't think they do, though, because I think they just said an undated photo.
I'm not seeing a date on these ones.
Yeah, I don't think they are dates. Okay, so the interesting thing is, people have done research and they're like, yeah, it was this hotel. These are the two owners. The question is this Adolf Hitler?
Well, it certainly looks like Adolf. The question is, when was this? This
This
could have
would
been
be-
in the 40s or the
Yeah,
30s.
I mean, it was after World War II. It was
Well,
after World War
I mean,
II.
yeah, anybody can say that it was after World War II, but it may not have been. He could have gone down there. Like, they were scouting Argentina as a place to escape. Everybody knows that already, right?
Yeah.
So they could have been down there and had all these relationships and even had like their bunkers all planned out. And this was one of the many trips he took down there to kind of like fortify all of that. You know, that's the issue. It's hard to know when that, when that photo was taken. And it doesn't look very different from Hitler when he was at
True.
large. Like, usually after a 10 years, you're going to see your hair is graying, you're a little chunkier or whatever it is. And it looks just like him in the 40s,
Mm-hmm.
towards the end of his rule.
Argentina is also right near Antarctica. So we know the Nazis were scouting out
true.
Antarctica. So potentially all of South America was a good place for them to find some sort of backup location.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, however, what we can figure out is the people in the photograph, you can kind of look at, see like, okay, when did they own this hotel, right? I haven't looked into that. This article doesn't really talk about it, but the guy who supposedly came out and he wrote a book about Hitler going to Argentina. He believes that Hitler died. I mean, in Argentina, obviously, it's not like he's still alive or anything else. He just believes that he died in Argentina. But
when does he think he died?
He thinks he died in the early 80s, but I don't think so either. I do think it's a very highly plausible thing that he did go to Argentina, but I think, he could have died of anything. He could have died of cancer, could have died of something else. But
okay, also another scenario that could have happened is
Mhm.
that there was some deal that was made and they were like, look, just bow out, go down to South America, go to Argentina. You can hide there. We'll leave you alone. We just need to end this war. All of this needs to end, blah, blah, blah. So let's say that deal was made.
Yeah.
After a couple of months or a couple of years, they're like, we need to erase this guy off of the planet. This is no longer going to work. If people start seeing this guy, then they wipe him out after that. He gets picked off by some type of agent.
It is possible.
Because it'd be too think about it. Once someone is media dead, you and I have talked about this before, they're never seen again. And anything is going to get squashed after. So if like people are seeing this guy down there and eyebrows are getting raised, it's going to cause too much commotion, and then someone's going to pick him off because it's too much to have. It would be too much to have him still alive after all of that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Hitler. I wasn't sure when Hitler was born. Hitler was born in 1889. So, I mean, even if he died in like.
Yeah, he was. And so like, think about that. In the 40s, 1889, he was what, 50 something. He was in his 50s. So in that photo, if that was in the 60s, he would have been like late 60s, early 70s. He does not look late 60s, early 70s in that photo.
Well, true.
He doesn't.
But I mean, we don't know when
we don't know when that photo was taken.
Yeah. So Walter. So looking at when the Eden Hotel in Argentina, I was kind of looking at that right now. When they took over it, it's not. Oh. Up until 1960. So that photo had to be taken prior to 1960.
Okay. I mean,
and she does look pretty old in that photo. So, it's possible. Yeah. I mean, so anyway, it had to be taken, and he also looks a little older. So it had to be taken some point, either at the end of the war or afterwards. And he's just chilling there. So, but I can't imagine them meeting Hitler in their own hotel during the war. Well, then again, I can't imagine them meeting afterward. for you. Although I'm sure he was going by a different name. You know, it's not like he was going around saying like I'm Hitler, you know, if that was really him, but who knows? I'm sure the CIA knows. So
Well, right. I'm sure there's something. I'm sure something went on. I just don't know what, and I don't think he lasted.
I don't think he lasted that long either. Like I said, I do think he went to Argentina and probably stayed there, but I don't think he lasted. You know, I don't think he died in the 80s. I think he died earlier than that. So there could be multiple things going on. And
I think if you want to find out like what like people get really obsessed with that one particular character, that one figure. But I think actually where to look are really the companies that were built during the time, what they went on and did, and then what they're doing now. I think there's more interesting stuff with this Joseph Mengele guy and the twins down in Argentina. That's super bizarre, man. You know, everybody keeps trying to debunk that, which makes me want to look at it even closer. You know,
true.
And I don't buy it that the Nazis didn't understand genetics or something. Like these guys were highly advanced. They created jet fighters. They were trying to create like anti-gravity machines.
Well, they were creating all kinds of things, including the Glock, you know, and which is really weird because Hitler himself is a Mandela effect with his eye color. You know, growing up, I always told he had brown eyes. Now all of a sudden he has blue eyes.
No, he had brown eyes.
Blue now.
No, he had brown eyes.
I know he did.
He wasn't like the Aryans. He had brown.
No, that's what was crazy. And now all of a sudden he has blue eyes. And I'm like,
weird.
What if someone actually went back in the past, killed Hitler, but a different Hitler came about? It's like, because you know, it's like one of those things that everyone always talks about, and it's like, well, no one did kill Hitler because Hitler lived. I mean, it's like we wouldn't know who Hitler is unless they like switch babies and they're like, oh, we're gonna kill this Hitler, and then they're like, well, we'll just name this person Hitler, and then this person raised and it was like a different person, but it was still Hitler. I don't know. Super weird though. His blue eyes thing, it's always messed with me. I'm like, did he like go back in time himself and do something? And
the Mandela effect strikes again.
Wow, Chicken Coop Lady says no, he had blue eyes, and it's like, no, man, because I remember in school.
I remember in school being told he had brown eyes.
Yeah,
and that's why everyone was like, see, he didn't even have the characteristics of an Aryan.
Yeah, exactly.
But of course, you know, I grew up in the 80s when school was basically shit. So who knows? Maybe they got it wrong.
Well, the other thing is too, people are like, well, maybe they're all black and white photos. And I'm like, it's possible. But I mean, history books at the time were teaching that his eyes were brown, and that he said the elite race was blonde hair and blue eyes, which he didn't have. Now all of a sudden he has blue eyes. So it's really weird. I don't know.
Okay. So we got one more thing to go over.
One more.
Lindsay, do you want to hit this or do you want to save this?
Let's hit it.
Why don't we do it on Rise TV?
Okay, so we're going to go over to rise.tv, and over there, we're going to talk about something really interesting, something we haven't talked about before, that actually at some point we're going to have to do a big, larger deep dive on this whole thing, the lost colony of Roanoke. So if you're interested in a mind boggler, please come over to rise.tv, hang out with us over there. We're going to talk about that. We're going to do a live Q&A. And then we're going to do a meditation and prayer together.
Yeah. And this Roanoke is all about a whole colony of people that mysteriously disappeared.
Gonzo.
Super weird. So we're going to get into it over on Rise TV, you guys.
All right. Well, if you could, please support our work. Come on over. It's just $9.99 a month. And so much to offer. So many videos of all kinds of things that you'd be interested in. Especially that which is up there right now for Halloween that we've got going on. Hopefully we'll see you guys over there. And thanks so much for being with us. Ben, thank you for being here today. Lindsay, thank you. And we'll see you guys over there on rise.tv.
War, conquest, death. Most World War II historians will highlight the politics of the time. but gloss over the truth behind Hitler's quest for power. The blood-spattered trail the Nazis smeared across the globe cannot be forgotten even today. But what if details were lost in the aftermath of the manic effort to create a Third Reich? Or what if they were left out of the history books on purpose? What if the Nazis were searching for something else? Particular artifacts Hitler had researched feverishly in his darkest days. Objects so extraordinary, he believed they held the answer to world domination. Objects that had the power to change the course of history itself. These were the relics of power. Of all the relics the Nazis sought to find, there was one valued above the rest. One that would secure the destiny of their rule and guarantee it for 1,000 years to come. One with a history that began in antiquity, the most mysterious of all the relics, the Spear of Destiny.
All right, welcome to Rise.tv. That was our relic